Hello and thank you for joining us on the Tuesday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Ozubakun. Today on the program, Supreme Court dismisses Ihedioha's application seeking review of Imo Governorship Election. INEC proposes 34 amendments to Electoral Act. And later on the show, federal government warns against inflating prices of face masks, hand sanitizers, as former INEC Chairman Professor Maurice Iwu claims he has cure for coronavirus. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Olabisi Deji Folutile. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us again. Now, the season of anomy we are witnessing between politics and law in Nigeria is far from over. The Supreme Court has dealt another blow to calls from politicians for it to review its judgment on some election matters. The Apex Court dismissed the petition filed by Ihedioha and the People's Democratic Party, PDP, seeking review of a judgment on Imo State Governorship Election on the 14th of January. In a majority judgment of 6-1, the court said it shall not review any judgment delivered by it, save for any accidental slip or clerical errors. This was the position of Babajide during our discussion on Thursday, the 27th of February.
If we want the judiciary to continue to play the role that is played, especially the final court, then whatever decision that it makes, we must abide by it, whether it favors us or not. Today, if it doesn't favor you, tomorrow it may favor you. So we leave it at there. We take it on the chin, like good sportsmen. That's the way it should be. And that's what I asked for. Yes, they've been punished, but I expected that the punishment will have been stronger. But I think still that, well, that is a lesson, a message sent to them that you put your training to shame by bringing this kind of application. I think the words of Justice Auje was strong enough for anybody, any discerning lawyer, to be able to read between the lines that these people will not tolerate anymore. And it sends a clear signal that even other reviews will end up in the same way. We said it all through the time we discussed this, and we said we have never seen where it happened. Some will say, no, they can reverse themselves, but they can't point to any time when they ever did. It's clear that except the mistake is clerical, or the Supreme Court cited the wrong law to validate its position, that is the ground upon which they can change, they can tamper with their judgment, but not to reverse the main kernel of a decision that it has taken. It has never happened. And I'm sure that it will not happen.
But Nigerians are very funny people. When we had that of Bayelsa State last week, you know, the story was that, look, Imo is a peculiar case. It's quite different from what the Bayelsa case said, that they are sure the Supreme Court will review its judgment on Imo State, that Imo State is going to serve as a landmark so that everybody will know that this is possible. That even senior lawyers, even my lawyer friends, some even had a press conference canvassing that same position that, look, the Supreme Court will call for a rerun of that particular election. So look at what is happening today, Babajide.
Well, we are not surprised. We are not surprised. I think that a particular writer described lawyers as a tribe of people trained in the art of saying black is white and white is black, according as they are paid. That's the way he described them. In one of the famous books I read as a young man. So it's not everything that the lawyer says that has any form of correlation with the law. A lot of them are emotional. They say things based on what they wish to see happen, not what the law says. Because these issues are clear. You don't have to be a trained lawyer to know that certain things will not happen. You don't have to be a trained lawyer to know the difference between a pre-election matter and a post-election matter that is meant to be handled only by a properly constituted tribunal. But they will jumble everything together and come and try to mislead us or hoodwink us because some of them are extremely political. So whatever will please their own party, that is what they will come and present to us as what the law says. But we know better. And I said here that, look, the Supreme Court will cite lack of jurisdiction to not review its own matter, the matter that it decided. And it's very clear in our law, in the Constitution, that that the Supreme Court shall enter judgment within 60 days of a decision of the Court of Appeal. And that after that, it cannot entertain that matter anymore. I said it when we discussed Ihedioha's matter, that 60-day ceiling expired around the middle of January. Because Supreme Court had decided similar cases and said, see, we lack jurisdiction to go back to look at a matter that we had decided. That's Suswam versus Professor Upa is one of those cases. And the Supreme Court actually punished the lawyer who brought that matter. So we've seen cases like that. So I wasn't surprised when those senior lawyers were punished, because it's not the first time. I had one of those lawyers said, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. Oh, so when Jubril Okutepa, the brilliant lawyer from Kogi State, when he was punished by the Supreme Court for bringing a similar district, so was Okutepa wrong? Did he do anything wrong? Or how is Okutepa different to Wole Olanipekun? Both of them are sons, and neither of them has got two heads. It is what the law says that we are talking about here. 60 days after the decision of the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court shall not entertain that matter again. So, and we know clearly it's the simplest basis upon which the Supreme Court can say, look, we are not looking at this matter again. But politicians, as I always say, are the most optimistic categories, the most optimistic category of people.
People went to church on Sunday for Thanksgiving in Imo State for this matter.
Thanksgiving for something that has not been decided.
Or
to seek the face of God.
To seek the face of God and to thank God in anticipation. In advance. Okay. Last Sunday.
That's a new one.
You see, when you look at it, I was going through the case of Andy Uba. In fact, Andy Uba went to the Supreme Court twice, asking the Supreme Court to review itself. At the end of the day, there was a particular judgment. One of the judges actually called the move described the move as judicial rascality. That's for you to just come to us the second time.
Where's that?
Yeah, not to judicial rascality.
You know, politicians, as they rightly put it, what they want to do, they want to go to any extent just to have their way. And they think anything is possible. If you even look at it, it's not even a case of whether the Supreme Court is right or wrong. That is not even the case now. The Supreme Court might even be wrong, but then it will not reverse itself. And what is the purpose of rule of law? The essence of rule of law is for us to be ruled and guided by the law. So if you say that, okay, you want to have your way by all means, then where do you want to put the rule of law? Now, if the Supreme Court should review Ihedioha's case and bring him back, do you know how many cases will crop up again? And people will keep on saying that this is wrong, you have to review it. They will come up with different kinds of...
So we have to protect our institution.
So we need to protect our institution. That is very, very important. And the earlier the politicians realize this, the better for every one of us. So, of course, I wasn't surprised also. I knew that nothing was going to happen. I knew the results even before the beginning.
You saw the exposure.
So I knew it. So I wasn't really surprised. It's not a surprise really for anybody that, you know, is conversant with the rule of law, with the Supreme Court judgments and the rest of it. And as he rightly put it, even though somebody was talking about typographical error, not only based on typographical errors, if there are laws, if the Supreme Court had based its judgment on certain provisions of the laws and it later found out that those bases were wrong, then it could review himself. And I think it did that in 2015. It did that also in 2009 in a case involving one Okoro or something like that. And I think it's not as if they cannot come back to review their judgment. But the basis for that review is what is important here. Definitely the case of Ihedioha and does not seem to fall into the category of that
Judy
review.
pointed it out earlier that the major political case of political case like this, that you've never had any landmark.
The only way that when we talk about review, because every lawyer would want to have a copy of that judgment. So if there's a clerical error, if they cite the wrong law, they will go back and change and then correct themselves in the body of the judgment. Not that the main judgment that they made, they will overturn. That will not happen. You don't. They will now, because that judgment. Yes, that judgment, because the Supreme Court is a court of record. So that judgment will live on for posterity. So they will now make that correction, that clerical correction, so that those citing it will not be misled by the mistake of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, the main kernel of its judgment, it will never overturn. It will never overturn. But where there are errors, maybe like the name of the lawyer, they made a mistake in the name of the lawyer in their judgment. They will go back, make the correction. That's why they say clerical errors or typographical, or things like that. Not the main kernel. If you decide that, oh, Ayo Zubaku, you are owing Babajide £1 million, go ahead and pay. Even if they made an error, they will not go back and say, no, Ayo, don't pay. You understand? The Supreme Court is a court of law and a court of policy. It is not written that it should not make a mistake, or that where it makes a mistake, it must then reverse its own judgment. No, it's not. It's not an appeal court.
Now, Jude, when you look at, we still have more cases of this
Actually,
nature.
I have a case here.
Okay.
There is a case, where concerning Olorunfemi versus Asho in 2000. And the Supreme Court in its 18th March 1999 ruling set aside its earlier judgments delivered on the 8th of January 1999 and ordered that the appeal be heard de novo by another panel on the ground that it ought to have considered the respondent's cross-appeal, first of all, before allowing the appellant's appeal. Okay. So if the Supreme Court, yes,
start de novo,
exactly,
start
again, if it realizes that it has made a major mistake because of certain misrepresentation of facts, it could actually review itself, but there must be clear court cases that justify the action.
You see this one, this case that you mentioned now. Yeah. What we are talking about is a situation in which the Supreme Court says, oh, I was wrong. This is the judgment that I should have entered. That's not the case now. Yeah. Ordering a retrial is not the same thing as changing a judgment, reviewing yourself and saying, no, I made a mistake. Okay, this is a fresh judgment that I should have made. I think there's a distinction between that. That is what they are saying.
Both of you are...
Yusuf Ali, the lawyer, one of the best election lawyers, he said this whole thing is a waste of time. It has never happened that they changed their own decision and gave a fresh decision. That's why he said the main decision that they've taken, they will stand by it, even if they are wrong. They've made mistakes in the past. I think
we've had what we call a bandwagon effect now. Some other jokers, I'll call them jokers, they've gone to the Supreme Court for review after the beginning of this case.
Good luck to them.
And I don't know, maybe, would there be enough? Supreme Court has made pronunciation on 2 now to go and just withdraw that review.
No, they won't withdraw. They won't withdraw. Politicians, I've said it that they are very optimistic people. Some of them, you see, when they move from one marabout to another, they get told that, look, you win that matter. You win. Don't let anybody mislead you. Appeal to the Supreme Court. You will win. You will win. So they are optimistic people, and the lawyers too, until they begin to descend heavily on lawyers. Maybe when the Supreme Court deropes a lawyer, this thing will not happen because they are the ones advising the politicians to, okay, let's go to the Supreme Court. So
because if you are a senior advocate of Nigeria and you are saying, I have a name to protect,
yes,
I cannot lead you.
Yusuf Ali is a son, one of the best that we have. And he said it from the beginning. He said this is a waste of time.
I was wondering why Uncle Woliola Negbeku and Afe Babalola could partake in that.
Maybe
exercise.
they wanted to make history. You know,
were they paid for the job?
Of course.
So you said you were wondering. So
no, but
that money.
But it's not every brief that anybody lawyers take. Sometimes.
And I know money is not the big for Afe Babalola and Woliola
people like that.
How much you want to give them? So I'm still just wondering.
Ghanaian in these days will not just take any brief because of the issue of money. And I know that even Woliola Negbeku too does not take every brief. There are some briefs that you just tell yourself, no, I don't want this.
But the embarrassment from
the Supreme Court itself has to be more consistent. There have been, and I think that even the number of the judges on the Supreme Court panel should be reduced. A situation in which a panel of the Supreme Court gives a judgment and another one refuses to cite it, or a lawyer cites it before a different, like now, a panel of the Supreme Court validates his position with the position of law on a matter. And then there's a different panel that sits. The matters are similar. And then a lawyer goes before that same panel and cites the same point of law that another panel of the Supreme Court had validated. And these ones will refuse to accept it. It is wrong. Those inconsistencies, yes, those inconsistencies are common now, and that's why many people think that
have
something must give.
Someone from Lagos, thank you for staying with us.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to say a big thank you to you for answering my call. My greetings goes to the man on the center, though I don't really know his name.
Thank you.
But help me thank him very much.
I really.
We lost Samuel. I'm sure it's the first time caller. Keep trying. Keep trying.
So that's the thing, that those inconsistencies are drawing people's attention to the weaknesses of the Supreme Court. And for that, many people are losing confidence in the court. There has to be consistency. The quality of people going into the final court should also improve. And I know that it cannot improve unless even from the lower level, we begin to reform the judiciary and get the right people.
Push the best.
You know, the American presidents will always want certain categories of people to get to the Supreme Court because they know that it will affect big cases when those cases come. You know, someone like Trump, for example, if he knows that you are ultra-conservative, he may not want to support you getting to the Supreme Court. The point that I'm making is that the judges of the highest caliber should be the ones that get into that Supreme Court, so that at all points we will be confident that, look, they will do the right thing. And as I advise them, they should run away from politicians, because politicians will destroy the name of the Supreme Court. They are the ones who pile out the pressure.
You see, I think so far, so good. We'll say our Supreme Courts, I think they're 13 or 16 in number, as in the number of judges there. They complain one time that they need more. But from the work they've done so far on the litigation arising from the 2019 election, how will you assess it?
I would still say that they are still quite overwhelmed. I don't think we have enough hands there. There was a time that they were complaining that they were very overwhelmed. with the work. But talking about judgments from the 2019 elections, I think the Supreme Court has done well. There are cases where, you know, people thought maybe the ruling party was going to have its way, and there were disappointments. Yes, they were shocked. And there were also cases where, you know, the opposition thought it would not have a fair hearing, and at the end of the day, it did. So I think, so
perhaps it was baseless going to submit petition in the United Nations, in the American embassy, and against the Supreme Court.
They have the right.
Because I read it before today now that some international observers were coming to observe what the Supreme Court was doing today, and I was like,
they have their reason. He has rightly said it, that, you know, politicians will go through any extent to, you know, you make noise, you shout, you do whatever.
Let me quickly take this call. Wale is calling us from Lagos. Thank you for joining us, Wale.
Yeah, good evening, Ayo.
Good evening, Wale.
Good evening, my encyclopedia.
I agree too, sir.
And the woman on the panel.
Thank you.
I am so happy that finally the Supreme Court has called the block of the so-called senior advocates of Nigeria, who are mainly political lawyers. Okay? I mean, from what happened in the case of Lion versus PDP in Bayelsa State, I thought this Ihedioha would have behaved like a gentleman and ordered his lawyer to withdraw the case from court. But I'm happy about what happened now. And as Babajide said, they should derobe at least about 2 or 3 of them and ban them from appearing at the Supreme Court. That is the only way they will stop calling white black and black white. God bless you.
Thank you, Wale. Thank you for
so if it is treated as gross misconduct, those lawyers will be bringing such, you know. And some of the dirtiest lawyers we have in the country are the senior lawyers. Those of the junior lawyers are not proud of them because of their corrupt nature and other funny antics, you know, that they've come to be identified with. So if it is treated as gross misconduct, you want to waste the time of the court. It's not a good thing. So I believe that if it is treated as gross misconduct and 1 or 2 lawyers get derobed or you lose your sanship, it will stop.
I'll be critical. All right, still to come. INEC proposes 34 amendments to the 2010 Electoral Act. Stay with us after this time out. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back. This is Journalist Hangout, your multi-award winning program, reaching you live from Television Continental. That Nigeria's electoral law is flawed should no longer amaze anyone. As part of efforts to sanitize the process, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it is proposing 34 amendments to the 2010 Electoral Act as amended. At a function in Lagos, INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakub and other top officials said there were many shortcomings in the electoral legal framework that should be addressed through legislation. Jide, before we went into the 2019 election, there was an Electoral Act that Mr. President was meant to sign. Mr. President did not sign it. They had back and forth between him and the 8th Assembly. And that Electoral Act was jettisoned. Now, INEC is proposing 34 amendments because we've seen some flaws in the conduct of the 1999 Constitution. That is, like the lawyers will call it, lacuna within the amendment and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yes, every election cycle, we should look at the Electoral Act. Every election is supposed to be governed by the Electoral Act. In the case of the 2019 election, we had to use the 2015 election as amended, Electoral Act as amended. The then president received it on the eve of the election. We received the bill and he gave his assent.
Was that good luck?
Yes.
Okay.
But President Buhari refused to give assent, despite the fact that it was presented to him a number of times. And my disappointment about that whole issue was the fact that INEC and the National Assembly were working together. It's not as if Bukola Saraki and others simply just came up with different portions, that they wanted to add to the Electoral Act. They were working in concert with INEC. And now you see that they are again, the National Assembly is once again working with INEC. INEC has decided to enlist the support of the National Assembly because it wants a situation in which the problems that it faced that time, it will not face this time around. One of the best ways to sanitize our electoral process is to make the card reader legal. When you make the card reader legal, you will be able to tell yourself that, look, the election is credible. Why was the 2015 election far more credible than 2019? And you see that clearly fewer people went to court over 2015 than 2019. Because the card reader was largely used in 2015. But politicians have now found a way to bypass the card reader. Politicians will buy
registered voters.
Politicians will buy card reader from individuals, knowing that even if the card reader fails to authenticate you, you are still going to be allowed to vote.
Using the registered
no, it may not be your own. Okay. You understand? I say when they buy card readers from people, they give those card readers to their own supporters. Those supporters that they give to may not even be people who registered to vote in the election. But because somehow we have not made the card reader legal, once people step forward and the card reader they are not authenticated by the card reader, there is allowance for them to still vote through the so-called incidence form. You get the point that I'm making. If you make the card reader legal, you can then say anybody who fails to use the card reader, any electoral officer who fails to use the card reader should be sent to jail. You will see that our elections will be far better. And all those huge figures that you hear, 1-point-something million here, I swear to God, you won't see those figures. Because if you stick strictly to the card reader, there's nowhere. It takes a longer time. The accreditation takes a longer time. You are not likely to see those huge votes. Because politicians have found a way around it. Whether they are authenticated or not, you are still allowed to vote. So what is the essence of the electronic accreditation? If someone who the card reader device rejected still manages to vote. I've spoken with many of the INEC, many recs in INEC, and what they are telling me is that the voters register is full of people who do not truly exist. So those people, yes, from different states, politicians can bring voters or from maybe Gombe to come and vote in Lagos. They will just give them all the candidates that they have mobbed up. They will distribute to them, knowing that once they show up at the election venue, they will be able to vote. They should not be happening.
You see, for some of us that we are actively involved in covering election, we've seen a lot of these pitfalls that Jide is talking about, and by the time they finish the program, that they start with the logistic in the morning, putting things together, by the time INEC start collating results, you'll be shocked. And after waiting endlessly, that somebody will now bring out calculator and start calculating, and they are waiting for result slip from each of the 24 local governments manually, and they'll start calculating one by one. And I'm sure most of these things are televised live, and when you see it.
I think we are just not a serious-minded
2020
country. To think that we can still be going through this in this 21st century is amazing. The truth is that it is not as if, we don't know the value of technology, but we deliberately decide to keep it aside for ulterior motives. Because let me ask you, which is simpler? For you to use the card reader that we record, that we have a record of every voter, and at the end of the day, you just do a summary of all the voters, and it's going to tell you the number of people that voted in a particular constituency. There is no error, there is nothing. And you know, when they introduced this card reader in 2015, we were told that they invested money in buying machines that can power the card readers so that it could work for many hours, so that no matter how many hours you stay online, this and this. And knowing that it is very difficult to actually manipulate the system when you use the card reader, that is why, you know, the politicians will always want a situation where you don't even use the card reader at all. Now that INEC is talking about review, I think that technology is very, very key. I think we should, I mean, for the sake of posterity, for our own sake, for the sake of people that are looking at us as a nation, for the sake of the people that think that Nigeria is still the giant of Africa, I think there are things that we should put in place. Elections, we should be able to conduct elections. You see, if you even use card reader, it's going to reduce the level of violence in the system, because you are not, it's going to give you the correct answer, for crying out loud. And if you want to be violent, you are just being violent on your own, because it's not going to change anything. I think even in this last election, that card reader worked in some places. I remember the election in Akwa Ibom State, the senatorial election in certain places, where the senator claimed to have pulled votes that were more than the, yes, that were not even registered at all. But at the end of the day, the rec said, we go back to the card reader, we look at the record from the card reader, and from this we take our decision. And that was what, yes, and that was what was done. And that was how they were able to get the correct info concerning that election.
I think we should be looking at our political parties too. Yes, INEC deregistered some political party, so I think they are like 18 now.
They need some independence to be able to take
that decision. And some people, they've gone to courts, and the National Conscious Party,
it's part of what they are proposing. It's part of what they are proposing, to look at the number of political parties and take a decision on what should even qualify you for registration in the first place. You have to make it a lot more difficult, make the stipulations tough.
You can't win the local
so
government
that we do not have voter cards that are as long as
ballot papers.
I mean, ballot papers that are as long as the Third Mainland Bridge. So that's clearly one of the things that they are thinking about. And then the electronic transmission of results. The bulk of election rigging takes place at the collation centers, especially the local government collation centers. I've analyzed before how politicians rig election. Politicians will bribe INEC staff. INEC staff will sell original Form EC8A to them. So there, while you people are lining up in the sun, they are just watching you. They will sit down somewhere and fill in results based on the number of registered voters. In some states in Nigeria, people are not interested in a healthy electoral process, so they are not interested in voting. They are watching you. They don't even campaign that much. They spend the bulk of their money in the hours between when the election starts and when the results are released. So they are watching the opponent. Okay, how many votes is he going to bring from Umbise? Okay, oh, you want to bring a huge vote from Umbise. Okay, I'm waiting here. I have the Form EC8A. INEC staff have provided me with the form. They've told me, okay, that where, you know, where they don't even provide you the form, they give you the security features. You then go and print the form like that man in Rivers State. Remember the case of the press, the man who had a press where he was printing INEC forms and all that. But we don't even know what happened. Did they jail him? Nobody knows. So this is the thing. Now, if we have electronic transmission of results from the polling centers, every one of us will know the result. What is A score at so place? Not that after we have voted, because electronic transmission of results is not permitted at this stage, some wicked politicians will go and change, alter the will of the people.
State level.
I want to see in my own lifetime, I want to see real progress made in terms of our electoral process. What we are doing now, we are just being barbaric. We are behaving like Stone Age people. That nobody does election the way we are doing election. We let people vote. They stay in the sun, in the rain, only for us to go and change their results. Because we are bribed INEC, we have from EC8A. We'll sit down somewhere and then compile our result. We turn ourselves to electoral umpires. And when we fail to do that, we put guns to the neck of electoral officers and force them to declare that we are the winners. I've told you the case of that lawmaker who went to the INEC returning officer and said, give me a certificate of return there or I blow your head. The man quickly rushed, gave him certificate of return. So when he was going, the INEC staff said, hey, Mumu, you know, say the real result they inside server. The INEC returning officer didn't know that he was the real Mumu. Because the guy knew what the electoral law says, that a certificate of return duly issued can only be taken back by a court of law. He then went and bribed judges. So the judges refused to take back the certificate of return that the returning officer gave him. So when people tell you that you can only rig where you are popular, that is a lie. You can rig where nobody knows you. What does it take? You put a gun to someone's neck and he rises, he says you are the winner.
It happens. Don't let me mention another state.
We are not doing elections here. We are not doing elections.
It's a part of the reformation we must be doing on our electoral laws.
I think one important area that I would like the electoral law to focus on is in the area of people living with challenges.
Okay.
Actually, the INEC Chairman mentioned that as part of what is going to be reviewed. For now, I think blind voters especially, they also vote blindly in Nigeria of today. I mean, a lot of them complained during the last election that they were not sure if they actually ended up voting for the candidates of their choice, because they had to be led into the polling booth by somebody. And, you know, they would just tell them, wherever they put their hand, that's it. Of course, you may think that it will be moral for anybody to do. But then, what stops us from having Braille, which is even part of what I
think this NGO is working with INEC on that for Kogi State. What's the name of this NGO?
Okay. That your friend now.
Something Todo. I've forgotten the name of his NGO. I saw a situation room for people with wheelchair.
But they didn't bring those materials anyway during
the last
time. They could have used it.
How many places did they deploy it?
But for the last general elections.
No, for the last, I'm not sure.
They were not even deployed. Because
even in Kogi, how many places did they deploy?
Because we spoke with the INEC people at that time, and they had those materials, interestingly. They had the materials, but just that they were not deployed to the polling stations, you know.
Okay, I have.
So at least they should work on that.
Shuaibu is calling us from Jos. Thank you, Shuaibu.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good day.
Shuaibu.
Yes. Kudos to the presenter, Babajide, and the lady over there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. This issue of voting, until we go to electronic voting, that is our only way.
Yeah.
That is our only way that will rid this country of malpractice and everything. And it will also go in conjunction with the National Assembly should pass a law that on that day, police officers should have body cameras. Our police officers should have body cameras that will monitor everything that's going on. So we should make it in such a way that the results will be transferred, the result will be transmitted electronically to every state and INEC headquarters also.
Real time.
Make it impossible to rig that it should have a two-phase authentication system.
You're right.
So there's the electronic voting, and there will be the paper one that can be counted at the local INEC headquarters and all whatnot. That is our only way to rid ourselves of malpractice and everything that is going on.
Yeah.
You're right, Shaibu. Thank you.
Thank you.
As big as India is, you know,
I think over 800 million.
The world's largest democracy. You can't rig an election. And within 48 hours, even less than 48 hours, you already know the winner. In our country,
close to 800 million voters.
More than 2 days after, we still do not know
manually,
who
we are still in
you can't rig, and it's electro. And you know the funny thing is, the interesting thing is that the technology is 100% Indian. The electronic technology to conduct elections. Why don't we just borrow from them? Let's ask them, how do you do it?
And the next time,
we are not ready. All we want to do is rig the election.
What we ask for 2019 election, what we ask to conduct the billions. For 2023, when you see it, it will be quadruple.
Exactly.
Of course,
Exactly.
We should invest that
huge money.
We should invest that in making the election more credible, and so that deepening the trust of the people in the electoral process.
And finally, we are no longer at ease in Nigeria since the dreaded coronavirus landed in our shores. One of its attendant impacts is that some Nigerians are seizing the chaos to further for their selfish interest. Now, the federal government has warned citizens against arbitrary hike in the price of essential items like nose guards, face masks, and hand sanitizers needed to prevent spread of the virus. Also, former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Morris Iwo, is claiming to have found a cure for the disease. The federal government and the World Health Organization, who are backing him to succeed. Gentlemen, let's first of all face Morris Iwo. There was a time one of our own, Jeremiah Balakat, came out that he has found cure to AIDS till tomorrow. We don't know what became of that case. But somebody as high as the status of Professor Morris Iwo, he can't just be making noise. So, Babajide, do you think we should support one of our own? And this can also come from Nigeria. For Nigeria, when you look at the spread rates, as at this morning I was looking at our statistics, and as after 24 hours of this virus getting to Nigeria, even 48 hours, you can see that we've been able to contain it to the barest minimum. We've not gotten people that have been quarantined and have tested positive to this coronavirus.
But you see, we are not there yet. We've been lucky. God has been on our side, but we are not there yet. We are finding it difficult to locate the people that Italian was on the same flight with. Some government officials have admitted that. Though we are trying our best as a country not to throw people into panic, but that is a fact that they are finding it difficult to locate.
By that time, the symptoms would not have manifested, but by now they would have been.
Well, then I remember the Commissioner for Health in Kano complaining that airlines were not complying with the Federal Ministry of Health directive that they should issue forms to every traveler so that the traveler can log in his details and even the ailment that they suffer from. They are not giving those forms to the passengers. Passengers just come into our country and that's it. In my view, there are steps that we need to take. Some of those countries where this thing is prevalent, even Iranians now, already more than 60 persons have died in Iran. We should not allow planes to fly in from Italy, from Iran, and those even China, those countries where we are sure that yes, this thing is really running riot in those places. So let's continue to educate the people, and the people who are on the same flight with that index case, we must do our best to locate them. It's unfortunate that time is running out. Who knows where they all are now. But if a government official can admit that they are finding it difficult to locate them, then we know that there's a problem. The luck that we have is that the rate of infection of this drug, of this ailment, it's not the same thing, or this disease is not the same thing as Ebola. This one has just 2% infection rate, which is good. Otherwise, honestly, we would have been in trouble.
You see, Professor Ajayi first who narrated his audio in South Africa that, look, they had to stop the plane for like 30 minutes. They didn't allow them to come out of the plane, and they had to carry out, you know, inspection and fumigated the plane and everything before anybody could come out.
Yeah, you know, I was even surprised that the Italian could come in without and get to town doing his business without any form of check at the airport in the first instance. You know, if he hadn't fallen sick at Ewekoro, if he had succeeded in coming back to Lagos, for instance, who knows what would have happened?
Okay, maybe at the time he came into Nigeria, he wasn't showing that symptom.
He wasn't showing symptoms, but at the same time, there were no. It's obvious that there was nothing in place at the airport to even check anybody, like what Professor Borofis was trying to explain. Look, we can be careless in this country. I went to Ghana a few months back. When I was going, I wasn't sure if I needed to take yellow card. You know, I wasn't sure. So when we got to Ghana, and you know, in Lagos, if you can, of course, you could get that.
No, fake yellow card.
Yeah. Yellow card is everywhere, 5,000 naira. Yeah.
They'll just give you. You don't need to.
People actually came to me to, but I said no, I wasn't interested. But when I got to Ghana, I couldn't go in. I had to take the vaccination now. I took it and I paid. Yes, you have to take it and pay.
She almost missed her flight, so she had to rush onto the flight. But by the time we got to Durban, they said no.
You can't enter.
She couldn't join
the rest of us. They pay at the international airport now
and you
to get your yellow card.
And they are there.
But without yellow card,
fake.
Without yellow card, at least they know where you are going. They will take it from you and allow you to go in. But to not have it, if you do not have it, you'll be quarantined.
And
then they will vaccinate you.
They will vaccinate you.
Before they let
you can't escape it. You know, to show you how serious they are. But here, I imagine they just come in and then they go with all the cases in Italy. I did not expect anybody coming from that part of the world not to be subjected to, you know, a serious scrutiny. But anyway, we thank God that the issue is under control. They said the man is even responding to treatments, and thank God for those who claim that the condition here is so hot that coronavirus is not going to survive in Nigeria. And I want to agree with them that it's not going to survive in this country because it shouldn't just survive. We don't need it at all.
But actually, this thing is a big threat to even IOC for ahead of the Olympics. They are considering a lot of options. So maybe they should have it indoor or should cancel it outrightly.
But the thing is, it is not expected to extend beyond the first quarter. So at the rate at which countries are waging war against it, they should be able to announce that it's been defeated maybe by latest, maybe by April. So they are confident that the recession or whatever problems that come with it will not extend beyond the first quarter. Now, the federal government is warning people who are trying to profit from this thing. And someone told me that a carton of face mask, there are usually 40 inside it. It used to be sold for 12,000 naira. It is now 20,000 naira. Then infrared thermometer used to be sold for 5K. It is now 30,000. That is how Nigerians are profiting from an unfortunate situation. That's how we are. Now, when you deny people, and the sanitizers too, they've got the price of sanitizers, you know, have gone up, where you can even find good ones. So when we make it difficult for people to access these things that can save them, we do not imagine that we are also endangering our own lives, because it could be any of us that will fall victim of this disease. So it's unfortunate that people are behaving like this, and in the name of God, they should just stop this habit of unnecessarily inflating the cost of these items just because they can see that.
This year, have you attempted to buy
demand.
a hand sanitizer?
Well, I always have one.
Okay.
Since Ebola time,
Okay.
and besides, I wash my hands very well.
Okay.
If I have any handshake with you, when I
Okay.
don't wash my hand, I don't feel comfortable. But then, you know, Nigerians.
Ultimately, we are covered by the blood of Jesus.
Lord of Jesus.
Thank you. Olabisi Deji. Polutile, thank you so much. DQ, Babajide, Kolade Doji. Yes, a cleric, a church leader was quoted as saying that
it won't affect his members,
his church members. So just give them the blood of Jesus and
that is it.
They're covered. Once you're a member of that church, you can't come near you.
Yes.
We're very religious people.
Yeah.
And that's our offering. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can watch the repeat broadcast tonight at 11. You can also watch Journalist Hangouts on our platform showing on the screen. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ihedioha. Bye for now. See you tomorrow, and God bless Nigeria.